Welcome everyone again to Autism Spiritual Approach Radio. My name is Sandra Alexander, and we're having our Friday noon lunchtime, Mountain Time again. I hope you brought your sandwich or your little salad and we can just talk a little bit. I am so excited today to introduce you to a beautiful friend of mine and a wonderful guest. Her name is Joy Truscott from Awakening South Africa. Joy, are you there?
I am, my darling Sandra. Thanks. It's good to be with you.
It's good to have you, my dear. And I'm so excited to have you, Joy, because what we wanted to focus on today, what we wanted to talk about in relation to autism, the spiritual approach, for parents, for educators, for therapists and pediatricians that are listening in today, we wanted to talk about energy. Talk about what energy really is. Talk about maybe the difference between behavior changes and actual internal energy changes that makes the difference, really, we're seeing in autism spiritual approach between short-term borderline outcomes in connecting with these sweet, beautiful, heaven-sent kiddos and actual deep connection that we can make, and to give them the message, that you're perfect. We accept you. You're accepted, you're loved, and you're embraced just the way you are. So I know you have some things to talk about on energy, and not just in relation to the children so much, but just in general. So what do you think, Joy? What's in your heart and in your mind to share with everybody listening today?
No, it's just lovely to share. And Sandra, you and I taught together years ago. So we both have a base in education, and we love children. Of course, we just love the little people. And we see them as absolute individuals, and not just the children, but the families, the parents, everyone else. I mean, everyone is just their own unique being. But what I do love is that I've taken my work now as a therapist, and I've taken it into the world of energy and understanding how we truly are beings of energy. And once we start to understand what that means and we start looking at it, we actually can start working in a different way, and the shifts that we can bring in are more profound and quicker and more sustaining than ever before. So I know that you and I, when we were working with little people who were really having a difficult time and they were jumping and screaming and having terrible tantrums because of trauma that they had experienced, we would be looking at the behavior that the child was experiencing and expressing. And when you look at behavior, like you say, it is a very different aspect to the child. It's a less likable aspect to the child. And what happens is that we start blaming and shaming the child because of a behavior. And what I always want to say to parents is that, that little precious child, when they go down to nap, and you look at that sweet little face, and there they are, just having their little nap time, and your heart absolutely aches with delight looking at that little being that is there sleeping. And it's the same little being. Early in the day, they were filled with behavior. And now they're not. Now they're not filled with behavior, but it's the same child. And what is different in our way of seeing them is that we're not seeing them through the lens of judgment, blaming and shaming and criticism. And this is such a huge key component to working with energy. And what I have found is that parents who are able to really start understanding their own energy being and how they will find that their relationships with their children change. Does that make sense?
Well, and it makes perfect sense, and it's such the foundation of, that's why we call it spiritual approach, because first of all, there's this quote by Wayne Dyer that I just absolutely love, and he says, when we look at something differently, that something changes. Now, I don't like the something in relation to our children. So let me just say that when we look at our children differently, our children change. And one of the tools that we use in Autism Spiritual Approach is what I call the marquee visualization. And you and I have talked about this before, Joy, how, we're not saying that teachers or parents are in any way intentionally, looking negatively upon a beautiful child. But what we find, all of us, I think we can all, call ourselves on being simply human, that when a child is behaving in a certain way, or even when a child receives, the first time a parent receives a diagnosis that the child is on the autism spectrum, so to speak. That's another whole conversation of the labeling. But then it's so difficult for a parent or even a teacher with a child in the classroom to not be running these pictures, almost like running these pictures across their forehead of deep concern. Will the child ever be accepted? Will my child ever be loved? Will they ever have friends? Will I be good enough? Will I know what to do? And so when we're thinking these things that are deep love and concern for a child, what we're finding is that these children, from the very, very beginning, Joy, and even then obviously into adulthood, have this sixth sense, what you call the sense that makes no sense, in such a big way that they can really, not almost, but they can really see our thoughts. And so they start feeling like that we're worried for them. And they start feeling that energy, that type of energy. So what we ask parents and teachers to do is to try to run a different marquee, to try to run those visuals of that beautiful sleeping child, run the visual of the child being the best he or she can or wants to be, and that helps us shift our energy and then allow the child to connect to us in a different way. So can you talk about that as you write on your website, the sense that makes no sense, and how that fits into this energetic connection, how we can break that connection and how we can repair that connection?
Yeah, this is really the base, actually, Sandra, because if we can, first of all, as the parent, what they are seeing when they're hearing news that their child might not fit in with, and I'm going to put this in big inverted commas, normal, because really that is such a ridiculous label. We are all divine, unique beings that are here to experience and express ourselves in this life in the way that we are meant to do. So when we have the parents connecting in with news that they perceive as devastating in one way or another, what it really is doing, it's triggering a pain or a loss or an ancient pattern or a cord of pain or suffering inside of them. So the lens that they are looking through is really the lens of their own pain. And once that is activated, they have a very hard time not producing results based on their activation, or their reaction is based on that activation. The way they think, the way they feel, and the way they respond to another is directly linked to the wounds that they might have and might be holding inside of their being. So the key really is for us to release the energy cords, the painful cords of energy that are inside of our own psyche and our own energy field, our being field. So when I talk about the sense that makes no sense, what that is that we have, sometimes you are just going along, happily bubbling along in your day, and something will rear its head or some remark will come your way, and instead of it just being an idle remark that perhaps you and I will not pay any attention to, we'll just let it go and we won't react to it in any way, a person might have this ridiculous reaction an overreaction to a word or a look, a gesture, a phrase, something. And what that is doing, it's igniting a memory. And where I say it's a sense that makes no sense, because if the person doesn't have a direct connection to that memory, it is like some part of their body is remembering something from some time way back, and suddenly they have this this reaction that comes through, the sense that makes no sense. A way we can also see that is there is sometimes the sense of foreboding or doom or huge anxiety or fear that just does not fit the space that we are actually in. It doesn't make sense for that time, that place, and that space. So this is when parents are vital. It's vital that parents actually get very, very clear with ancient chords. So do you know what I'm saying when I talk about ancient chords, Sandra?
I do. I'm not sure that everyone would, but that was one of the first questions that came to my mind. So when you say that we may not really be able to connect with or relate to what's coming up in us, or what we sometimes call triggers, and when our reaction is not proportional to the circumstance, and like you say, this doesn't have to be in relation to the child. That has, this could be when we're out and about in our day-to-day and someone cuts us off with their shopping cart in the grocery store, and all of a sudden, murderous thoughts appear. And so, we all experience that. We're not just necessarily talking about parents and their children. I mean, we all have these reactions, and I think that if we had calmed them all, we would have elevated beyond this planet, and we wouldn't have any more work to do. But do explain that, Joy. So when we're talking about ancient, are you also talking about potential generational grief? Are you talking about perhaps even past life connections that we may never know? And my big question for you, Joy, is, do we have to connect what our reaction is? Do we have to go back and spend, I think the first thing that comes to our mind is, oh my gosh, so do I have to do past life regression? Do I have to go back and find this thing? How do I calm my reactions and find that inner peace so that energy will overflow to my child? Do I have to spend years trying to figure it out?
Yes, well, that's what stops everybody from wanting to do any work, because the thought of, oh my gosh, I have to go back. So if you are willing to entertain that we can carry memory, and memory resides not just in the physical body, but outside of the physical body, and I'm going to quickly tell you how we can know that. First, from people who have near-death experiences, from transient death experiences, as my friend Dr. Elaine Finkelstein talks about them. But also I have a wonderful friend who had a leg amputated, was in a shooting incident, and he now still experiences ridiculous phantom pains in the limb that is not there. There is a memory that is inside of his mind, inside of his cellular being, about being in pain and trauma in the time that he was shot. And in his mind, the limb, even though it is not there, the limb is in agony. And he screams out in the most wretched pain with this pain that is not belonging to a specific part of his body, which is no longer there. So if we can understand that pain holds an awareness outside of our physical form, which means it holds a space, and who knows where that is, but outside of our brain, then we can actually perceive the idea that we can carry memory either as a genetic imprint, just as we carry a genetic imprint from our ancestors who looked a certain way and we carry that look, or we can carry an energetic imprint. And these energetic imprints are actually the greatest impact in our lives. They are the ones that are causing the most damage, is the energetic imprint, and that is the sense that makes no sense. So if somewhere in an ancestral line or in a past karmic journey, you had a huge experience of being suffocated perhaps, or being bound, persecuted in some way, locked up, suppressed or held back in some way, that feeling, that trepidation and that anxiety would still hold today inside of your energy field. And given the slightest opportunity, it will raise its ugly little head and your energy will spiral out, and you will be in that reactive limbic mode of being instead of being in your responsive, mature, elevated awareness sense of being.
That's amazing, especially the story about your friend and his phantom pain, as we call it. So we all have phantom pain is what you're saying. We all have that, limb that we cannot see, the piece that we cannot see that is bringing us unidentifiable pain. And so let me connect this back then to parents, teachers, therapists who are sitting in the space with a child who's diagnosed on the autism spectrum, who may be exhibiting challenging behaviors, and just the challenge to that person who loves them of wanting them to be in peace. So wanting the child to be in peace, wanting the child to be more open to connecting. So if I'm hearing you right, once I want you in a minute to be able to provide a tool to whoever is listening on where they can start. But if, say, I'm working with this child, and I'm becoming anxious and I'm becoming worryful, and I don't know exactly how to accept this child, and I'm wondering about, it always comes to my mind that everybody seems to know more about what I should do for my child than I do, and I want to be able to tap in to my own inner knowing, to my own inner energy, and from a peaceful place and from a confident place that I know what my child needs. And that's one of the biggest issues I think we have, especially with parents and educators in the classroom, is we're being told from a mind-body standpoint all the time of what therapies the child needs, what behavior modifications the child needs. And yet as a parent, I know that if I were to be able to tap deeper and deeper into my own intuition, that I could make an amazing connection with my child. And I know I just need the confidence. So can we say that if we are able to extinguish these things that we don't even know and we don't even see that are getting in our way, that inner knowing can be more accessible and can be better expressed?
Absolutely. And so I'm going to just throw a whole new thought into this. Is it at all possible that the child that is coming into our life, or the person that is coming into our life, is actually here as a messenger to help us to do the release work that we really need to do to help ourselves to become more full and fully integrated and aligned as beings?
I love that you went out on that limb, Joy. I love that you did, because
there we go.
Yeah, because those of us who are doing this work, we really see that as true. And actually, the spiritual approach to intervention, as you see, I am not in direct work with children. I am in direct work with parents and educators and therapists and everyone that we've worked with across the world. And there have been many that are using this process, and that are, their motivation to grow, their motivation to, you use this word when we talked before the show, elevate, and I want to get back to that with you. So in using this process, we have to change. We have to change the way we look at a child, and we have to change our energy. It's like we are the log on the fire, And we must be that log on the fire. And when we are holding the right energy, the children are the kindling, and the children simply absorb that. So, as you say, they're there in order for us to have the motivation. And our motivation is love. Our motivation is deep, deep desire for the very, very best for that child. And so that's where the change happens. It happens within us, and that child is our motivation. And so when you talked earlier about simple steps to elevation, so that, let me add this all up. So if we take our simple steps, our next step to our own elevation because of this beautiful child that has come into our lives that we so want the best for, then what is my first tool? What would you say, Joy, that would be talking directly to me? What do I need to do to take that first step to be one more, let's call it a step up the ladder to changing my energy, so that the connection between me and that beautiful child takes that next step toward perfection?
So you nailed it when you said the connection is love. And that is absolutely the connection, because this child comes in, and this child is your own precious child that you're willing to have in your life and you've been yearning for, and here this baby is. And this love goes beyond what we can imagine, and that is the key piece, is this amazing love. And while we are doing the dance with one another, we are doing it through the language of love. So the very base that we need to work with, and you asked earlier, is it hours and hours and hours of work and therapy? No, it's not. We need to work with this in a very different way, and this is why I've formulated a process which I call Elevate, and it's 6 steps, and it is quick and easy, and we access a part of us, our brain and our being, that helps us to have immediate access to higher thinking, higher perspectives. So if we are in pain, my first step would be to say, be in it. Be acknowledging of your pain. Be in your pain and allow yourself to feel it. And feel what it feels like. Feel where it tangles into you. Feel where it hurts. Feel where the pain resides in your body and your mind and your soul. And when you can just sit still with this for a little while, you really can find the truth of it.
Well, and I love that you said that, and I wish we could go through all of the 6 steps with you today, and unfortunately we don't have that time available. But what I want to send the listeners away with is, and correct me, I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, because I'm going to do this myself, is often we are running from, we'll go back to those emotions. We don't want to think about our child not having friends and not being accepted. And we don't want to admit that we are devastated and we're feeling a tremendous amount of pain in reaction to, and in response to what our child is going through. So often we'll use avoidance mechanisms, and I'll give you my avoidance mechanism right now, my dearest. Do you know those Russell Stover's coconut cream eggs that come out around Easter time?
Well, because we're in South Africa, we don't have the same delicacy.
Oh, no. I have to send you one. Oh, my goodness.
You're going to have to send me. But never mind one. I want a box.
Do you well, yeah. If I'm going to pay hundreds of dollars for shipping, I may as well send you a box. But no, there's this creamy, coconutty white stuff in the middle, and then dark chocolate on the outside. And so talk about avoidance. It's like, I don't go and sit with my pain. I go and sit with my Russell Stover's cream egg, and I think that we can all laugh at this, but I think that what you're saying is so beautiful. And that's the the first step to ridding ourselves of pain that we don't even understand is being willing to accept it. And I've always said, I've done this work for a long time, Joy, and I think you know this about me because we've been friends a long time. The thing that I dislike about myself is the fact that I have to be human, and that I have to look in the mirror every day and say, I don't have it down. I don't know what I'm doing. I have to feel my human feelings, and I have to experience my humanness. And I grew up wanting to be an angel, and it ain't happening. It's being human. So, we have 5 minutes left, and I love that we're sending everyone listening away with the one thing, to sit with the pain. But I want to also for them to know, okay, so they experience that, they feel that, but how do they tolerate that? How far do you go before, you're concerned that this pain and this disappointment and frustration and not knowing what to do is going to drive you mad?
And amazingly so, we think we won't be able to endure it, but we are amazing beings of light and love. We are resilient beyond words. So we are able to tolerate immense senses, perceptions, and feelings. That's why we came with all the senses and perceptions and feelings that we own. We can feel them, and the secret is, as you're sitting with this pain, whatever it is, and being very, very real and honest and authentic, we just start to breathe. And there is something magic that happens when we start to breathe, and it's part of the expansion and contraction, which really is the way we can feel in life, and the way we move in life is always in the rhythm of expansion and contraction. And in the deepest pain, we are in our contraction. And even if we were to take a deep breath in, you and I, this moment, do that for me, Sandra, love, take a deep breath in. And go right to the top of the breath, and then breathe all the way out, as far as you can, and keep breathing out, 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 until you cannot anymore, and then press your ribs together and squeeze into your diaphragm and press that last bit of air out. And there is a point where you cannot do it anymore. And then you just relax, because there's nowhere else to go. And now you breathe in, and your body breathes in for you. And that is the opening of from the contraction, opening into expansion. And that is the way.
Well, and that felt so good. Thank you. And it's so beautiful. And so, the thing that we also, I think, have to know is that we go at our own pace, and we do what we can do. We sit with what we can sit with, and then we get up off the cushion, or get off the chair, or get up out of the bed, and know that, okay, we're living life again today, but there's just one more tool in our toolbox that we can use to make our energy different, so that when we change our energy, the energy of our child just automatically changes, like that log in the fire. And we actually only have a minute and a half to go, Joy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the site all of your contact information, but what I find you is a wonderful resource is that as parents, I had one parent working with the spiritual approach and learning this process, and from what you just said, her quote was, "I can finally breathe."
Isn't that perfect?
Yeah, I mean, what's better than that? And so you and I are just messengers. We're just offering tools that people can take as they feel that they're right, or not take as they feel like they're not. And so tell me tell me your website and the name of your book that can be found on Amazon, and then all the other connections and your beautiful picture I'll put on the site for everyone to see.
That's lovely. It's been wonderful talking with you, Sandra. So my website is www.soulawakeningsa, SA is in South Africa, .com. And my book is A Journey to Remember, recapturing the unique codes of our magnificence. And so both of those are, there are lots of resources on my website, and I will be posting this very, very new process. I've just started to develop it this week. Elevate the 6 easy steps to help us get to that new space inside of our being.
Oh, thank you.
Sandra.
Thank you, my dear Joy. You are a treasure in my life, and I know that you can be an amazing, valuable resource to parents and anyone working with a child on the autism spectrum. But way beyond that, as we look at our world today, I think the one thing that we have to remember and embrace, and it just touches my heart to even repeat this, is that there's only one way that we can have peace on earth, and that's to create peace within, and everyone has their own individual responsibility for that, and we all have our own individual way of doing that. So what you're doing here and helping one person find peace inside is just going to repeat exponentially and change everything. So thank you, my darling, and thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, darling. Many blessings, Sandra, love. And to your listeners, good luck and enjoy your bambalinos, your precious children. Enjoy them.
So thank you, everyone, for being here. This is Sandra Alexander with Autism Spiritual Approach Radio. See you next Friday at lunchtime, noon at Mountain Time, and we'll talk again. Many blessings till then.